Welcome, everyone. We are so glad that you were able to join us in this episode of our Monday Memories at HPM. We will start this program with a trivia. Did you know that on this date in history, October 26, was the first ever Cotton Bowl was played? The date was October 26, 1930. The Southern Methodist University beat the Indiana University 27-0 in front of 27,000 people. North Texans crowded into Cotton Bowl Stadium, then called as the State Fair of Texas Football Stadium, to watch the first game ever played. Wow, that is something. Now, let's take a look back on more history that is close to home. In today's Monday Memories, we will talk about the forgotten cemetery, the Cottonwood Cemetery. I wanted to see the actual location, so we drove out there last Sunday after church. To my disappointment, we couldn't really find the area. All we can see are some fences and gates that say no trespassing or private property, so we returned back to town. According to my research and information gathered from Mr. Brad Price, a member of the American Legion, and also who took some good photos of some tombstones at the cemetery, Cottonwood is solely an African-American cemetery with approximately 200 people that have been laid to rest within the 3-acre lot. This cemetery is located on the old Bandera Highway immediately north of Hondo's city limits and less than a mile south on the banks of Hondo Creek. Last week, we talked about the Mission Valley, and that was an interesting part of our history that leads us to Cottonwood Cemetery. A single large cottonwood tree stood on the Hondo Creek near a perpetual spring, which the two communities, the North Bank Creek Colony and Mission Valley, used for water. This tree was the inspiration for naming the community cemetery. Located on a rise in the creek, it is more or less equidistant from each of the two areas. It was located on land owned by Isaac King, a large landowner whose family had been the largest slave owners in the county. The cemetery originally was 1/4 acre in size, but in 1919 agreed to increase the area to 3 acres and did it to the Colored Cemetery Association, provided the area would be fenced. The entire community joined together, and in one day the men built the fence while the ladies and children provided food and refreshments. The earliest headstone within the cemetery is dated 1886, which one could determine was the establishment of the cemetery. Austin Grant, if you remember him on Mission Valley story we had last week, he was an original settler of the Hondo area who named the Mission Valley. He died in 1947 and his remains are at this cemetery. According to Elizabeth Kraft of Hondo Anvil Herald, the oldest readable headstone belongs to Nancy Garrett, who died in 1917. A gravesite of Jack Robinson, a faithful slave of the Ney family of the Haynes during the early 1800s and 1900s, is also at Cottonwood. Mr. Robinson may not be the only slave that is buried there. Who knows when some of the tombstones are not readable? Frank Holden, a U.S. Army veteran in World War I, is also laid to rest in Cottonwood. The Hondo High School fieldhouse is named after him. At least 3 United Methodist Church ministers are buried on the hill: Aaron C. Holden, Adolphus Holden, and W. M. White. Veterans of wars are also buried in the area. According to the American Legion Post 128 Hal Jones, they discovered that there were approximately 20 veterans within the Cottonwood Cemetery. The veterans buried there had served in all major conflicts from World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. These are just a few of the people who are laid to rest in the historic Cottonwood Cemetery. In February 2008, Kraft said in her report that as far as maintenance for the cemetery is done by the West End Baptist Church and family members. The cemetery lies in Precinct 1's jurisdiction, and in the past, they used to mow or for minor upkeep, but that's no longer done. The sign is gone and is going to be replaced. The American Legion Post 128 Hal Jones has adopted the cemetery by providing due respect to the military members who are buried at Cottonwood, recognizing the service to our country. The cemetery is still in use occasionally. Often, descendants of the settlement's founders, living in faraway places, making a last request to be buried in the land of their forefathers. Cottonwood Cemetery might be forgotten and lost, but it plays a great role in what we have right now. We cannot erase history. We cannot change the past. We are here because of our history. Thank you all for watching, and see you all next week.